Welcome to another Snowbird's Tech Tips. Today we're going to talk about bypassing automation when we are uploading data. There's a couple of different ways you can there's multiple ways you can upload data into your Salesforce system. There's the import wizard, there's multiple data loaders, there's API, there's different ways of doing it. Sometimes when you're doing these data loads, you don't want to fire off all or maybe some of your background processes. And that's what I want to discuss is how do we turn those off when we want to run those data loads? Because you don't want to just go turn the processes off because then it'll stop them from working through general work that other people are doing. You only want to stop it for the particular data loading function that you're doing. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple of ways to do that. First one I'm going to show you is the Salesforce import wizard. So in setup, I'm going to go to the data import wizard. And I'm going to come down here to launch the wizard. I'm going to do a data load into leads. I'm going to say I'm going to add new records by CSV. I have a sample file prepared on my desktop here, so let me grab that. And you'll see there's an option here, trigger workflow rules and processes. This is unchecked by default, which means when you load anything through this wizard, it does not run your background automation processes by default. This wizard automatically turns those off for you. So that's one option, is use this wizard. Honestly, I've not used this wizard a whole lot myself. I use data loading functions, and I know a lot of people use data loaders and API functions to load data, and so this doesn't help for those scenarios. So if you're not using this, then how do we go about doing that? Well, let me show you how to build a custom setting that will allow you to turn this off and on. So I'm going to go to custom settings and we're going to create a new setting here. I'm going to call it data load. And I'm creating a custom setting here so I can label it, and the object name is really the name for this custom setting. Visibility is fine. Make sure and give it a description. Like always, we want to make sure we're giving descriptions. And with this, you'll be able to turn these automations off and on for anything that you need to, whether it's data load or some other instance that might be happening. So I'm going to create a couple of checkboxes on here. I'm going to say flows. And then I'm going to do another checkbox. And I'm going to say validations. And I'm going to do another one. And I'm going to say maybe you want to control Apex code, so you can do that here. So you can add checkboxes to this for whatever processes you might have going on in your system that you might want to turn off and on. That's the point of this. And then all I do is go to Manage. And now, if I'm in a scenario where I need to turn it off for somebody, all I do is come to my custom setting, go to Manage, create a new record, and I can choose a profile or a user. In this case, I'm just going to choose my user, and I'm going to check the flows and say save. So now I have the flows box checked on my data load custom setting. Now, how does that actually play into turning off the flow? Well, you do that inside your flows. So part of this solution is a little bit of upfront work of building this into your flows. But if you make it a standard process, then it becomes second nature. It becomes really easy, and then you have control of your system. So I'm going to open this flow that we used in a different video, setting the status. And I'm going to come right here to my entry criteria. Right now, I have this. There's a couple ways to do this. So right now I have this just using the standard condition logic. I could flip this to a formula, build out my formula, my logic inside a formula, so I could use an AND statement. And one of the options here is I can come down here to setup and see there's my checkboxes for those different, for that data load custom setting we put in. So I can say flows equals false. And then I go about the rest of my criteria here. So I can say record status, whatever criteria you need to put in here. And now, as long as that checkbox is false, it'll run the flow. But if this ever becomes true for your user or the user running the flow, then this right here is going to tell it, don't run this flow. You'll see I also added validation checkbox into that custom setting. You can do the same thing with validation rules. Sometimes you may want to turn off a validation rule for data loading or some other instance you might be doing, and you can use the same type of thing in your validation rules. So let's create a validation rule here just for fun. We're going to say and this works the same way. You come down here to right there, you'll see your system data load. There's that custom setting. Validations equals false. And now if that checkbox ever becomes true, then it's going to not fire the validation rule. And then you can add whatever other criteria you need to your validation rule. So there is a little bit of upfront work with this. Implementing this bypass might take some legwork up front to get it in, to get this one line of criteria into your flows, into your validation rules, into your code. You can put that in your Apex code as well and turn your Apex code off and on using the custom setting. It's a little bit of work up front, but it'll save you a lot of headaches and time in the long run of being able to turn things off and on. And like I say, in your custom setting, you can add as many little checkboxes as you want. You can have them global where it turns off all flows, all validations, whatever, or you can have it for groups, for profiles, where you want a specific profile to be turned off through that custom setting. So you build a specific checkbox for that and then assign a profile to it. There's a lot of variables, a lot of options using that process, and gives you a lot of control over your system by implementing that. So there you go. Setting up what I call a automation bypass or validation bypass using custom settings in just a few minutes. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. Like our videos, subscribe to our channel for more tips coming in the future. Thank you.